Somewhere beyond the reach of maps, beyond the knowledge of any sailor, lies an ocean that does not obey the rules of man. Ships that enter never return, and those that do come back wrong. What if I told you that something waits beneath the waves? Something that remembers us. Welcome back to the Cabin of Whispers, where the unknown is always just a whisper away. Tonight, we set sail into the abyss, following a doomed expedition into waters that were never meant to be disturbed. The Erebus was not supposed to be in these waters. Captain Elias Mercer knew it, his crew knew it, and if the financiers back in Boston knew it, they'd have his head. The expedition was meant to map the southern reaches of the Pacific, not stray into the uncharted black zone that no sailor dared speak of. But then they found the monolith. It had risen from the ocean floor like a jagged black tooth, its surface glistening under the moonlight despite being dry as bone. The thing bore no signs of erosion, no barnacles, no algae, as if the sea itself refused to touch it. Dr. Francis Holloway, the expedition's lead researcher, had spent 6 days studying its impossible engravings, running his hands over symbols that shifted when no one was looking. He hadn't slept in nearly 72 hours.
There's a language here,
Holloway muttered, his fingers twitching as he copied more of the sigils into his leather-bound journal.
Something older than any known script. It's waiting to be read.
He wasn't alone in his obsession. Crew members had started sleepwalking, waking up on deck with vacant eyes fixed on the structure. One of them, first mate Clive Donner, was found whispering into the waves at dawn, his voice deep and layered, like something else was speaking through him. And then the deep-sea divers stopped coming back. The first had been Markham, a veteran diver with lungs like iron. He went down with a full oxygen tank and never resurfaced. The second was Graham, who surfaced twice, rambling nonsense about a second ocean beneath the one they knew. On the third dive, they only found his mask, the glass shattered from the inside. By the seventh night, Captain Mercer had had enough.
"We're leaving,"
he announced, standing in the dim glow of the ship's lanterns.
"I don't care what this thing is. We set sail now."
No.
The voice didn't belong to any of his men. It had come from Holloway. The doctor stood rigid, his sunken eyes locked on the monolith. The journal in his hands was open, pages filled with perfectly transcribed symbols. Except Mercer had seen Holloway's notes before, and they had been messy. Now, the script was flawless, as if he had written a language he was never meant to know.
The tide has turned, Captain.
Holloway murmured, smiling.
We don't leave. We descend.
The air grew thick. The monolith began to hum. Then, from the depths below the ship, something knocked against the hull. Hard. The knock against the hull echoed through the Erebus like a funeral bell. Captain Mercer staggered back, his breath caught in his throat. That hadn't been the current. It hadn't been a whale. It had been deliberate.
"All hands on deck,"
he bellowed, scrambling for control.
"Man your stations. We're getting the hell out of here."
No one moved. His crew stood frozen along the railing, their eyes locked onto the monolith. Their lips moved, but no sound came out. Except Holloway's. The doctor was whispering, a frantic chant in a tongue no man had ever spoken aloud. The markings in his journal glowed, their ink pulsing as if alive. The water around the ship began to boil. And then, the sea split open, not like a wave, not like a riptide. It collapsed inward, forming a trench that plummeted far deeper than the ocean floor should have been. Mercer's stomach lurched. This was impossible. Beneath the surface, there was no rock, no sand. There was a second sky, an endless storm of violet clouds, flashing with silent green lightning, rolling in unnatural currents beneath the void. The ocean itself had peeled away, revealing something beneath the world they knew. And from that void, something moved. A shadow, vast and serpentine, coiling through the storm without a body. It wasn't swimming. It was waiting. Something knocked the hull again, harder. The ship lurched violently, nearly throwing Mercer overboard. Then a scream. First mate Clive Donner collapsed, clutching his face.
It's in my head. It's in my head.
He shrieked, blood pouring from his nose as his body seized. His mouth stretched too wide, his jaw unhinging, and then he was gone. Not overboard, not pulled under, just gone. Mercer spun to his crew, horror settling in his gut. They weren't his men anymore. They were kneeling, hands clasped, their blank glowing eyes reflecting the monolith's green light. Their voices joined Holloway's, whispering in sync with the waves. Mercer turned back to the doctor, his blood turning to ice. Holloway grinned. His pupils were gone, replaced with swirling black voids.
"The tide has turned, Captain,"
he whispered. Another knock, louder. The ship lurched, wood groaning under pressure. A voice, not Holloway's, not any human's, spoke through him.
"The gate is open. The tide is right. It is time to sink."
The sky fractured. The monolith began to descend, dragging the Erebus with it. Mercer drew his pistol, and the sea swallowed them whole. There was no water, no air, no time. The Erebus was sinking, but not into the ocean. Mercer gasped for breath, his lungs screaming. But there was no drowning, no burning in his chest. He should be dead. Instead, he was falling, not into the depths of the sea, but beyond it. Beneath them, the world had changed. There was no ocean floor. There was a city, not built but grown. Colossal structures of bone and obsidian rose from the black void, their spires twisting at angles that defied all natural law. Bridges of flesh and iron pulsed with unseen veins, connecting temples older than time. And at the heart of it all, a shape, not a creature, not a god, something worse. It lay coiled around the foundations of the city, its vast, gelatinous limbs wrapped around towers like a slumbering titan. Mouths upon mouths sighed in restless sleep, their teeth forming entire archways over the streets. And then, it woke up. The city trembled as the thing's many heads rose. Its thousand eyes opened, black pits reflecting the universe itself. And Mercer felt it see him, not just his body, his mind, his memories, his soul. A sound like a dying star collapsing into itself shuddered through the air. The sheer weight of its presence sent cracks splintering through reality itself. Holloway began to laugh. Mercer turned, horrified. The doctor was hovering in midair, his face stretched into something inhuman.
"You feel it, don't you, Captain?"
he whispered, his voice layered with others.
"The unraveling!"
Mercer tried to move, but his body wouldn't obey. His crew knelt, their faces blank, their mouths whispering praises in the language of the abyss. Their bodies twitched, arms bending at impossible angles as they offered themselves to the thing below. And Zalzatheruin opened its mouths, not to devour, not to consume, to sing. The melody was wrong. It wasn't sound, it was knowledge. And Mercer understood. There was no Pacific Ocean. There was no Earth. There was only this. The world he had known, the life he had lived. It was the dream. This was reality. He had simply woken up. As the monolith crumbled, as the last remnants of the Erebus dissolved into cosmic dust, as the great thing rose to consume the false world above, Mercer let go, and he fell into the void. Some mysteries should remain undiscovered. Some doors, once opened, cannot be closed. If you ever find something that doesn't belong, leave it alone. If this story left you with a lingering chill, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a frightening Friday story. And tell me, do you believe there are places in this world that should never be found? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching Cabin of Whispers. See you next time.